This is the W5SC repeater, PL110.9. TechNet Saturday at 7 p.m. W5FC.
This is N5BB. In a couple of minutes, I'll be starting Skynet. If you'd use the repeater, please do so before I start the net. This is N5BB.
W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
This is N5BB, November 5 Bravo Bravo. My name is Bill. I'll be your net control station for this session of the Dallas Amateur Radio Club, Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy and space in general. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, so we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the post sign break and their call sign. This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from your net control. That would be me. Station is determined to identify the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using a W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. And I am monitoring the Echolink link. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio and video links are possible online. Go to www.w5fc.org for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check in the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Look for tonight's Skynet announcement and click on the hot link to check in. We'll acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry if you want to check in via voice. We'll continue to do that too, either over the air or on Echolink. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long, structured in several parts, which I'll whiz through. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, National Space Society. Discussion topic of the evening was up, space exploration and history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, and if we have time, the visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. All amateurs licensed to transmit this frequency are invited to check in. So currently we have the following people checked in with the web form. This is Skynet, and this is N5BB net control. I recognize Tom, KE5ICX in Corpus Christi. Billy, KF5PDS in Sherman. Antonio, AG9SG in Dallas. Robert, AA5AH in Richardson. Chaz, KF5JHA, with Bob the Cat, of course, in Mesquite. And Tony, NT5TM in Dallas. Okay, that's the only people so far that have used the web form at w5fc.org, but we can also accept check-ins on the radio. So now let's do general check-ins. If I have not called your call sign and you'd like to check in on RF, we'll do Echolink a little bit later. If you'd like to check in on RF, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Time for general check-ins.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay, and Mesquite.
This is Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob in Farmers Branch.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Okay, let's pause there. I recognize Clay, N5OF in Mesquite. Jacob, KG5UFR in Farmers Branch. Ted, WB4MFI in Dallas. Virginia, NV5F in Fort Worth. And Bill, KF5ZBL in Farmers Branch. Do we have any other RF check-ins for Skynet? Okay, let me look at the Echolink. We have Tom, we have Billy, we have Chaz, and me. So I don't see any other stations on Echolink. So does anybody else want to check in to Skynet via any mode? If so, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. Well, with all the 4th of July, Independence Day festivities, we may have a very light net tonight. There will be time for check-ins later. Now, let's get started. Do we have any general announcements? These are any general announcements about amateur radio, astronomy, space, something of interest to licensed hams. If you have anything like that, please come down with your call sign only.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Okay, first I have an announcement. Unfortunately, Chaz says there's no more Bob the Cat, R.I.P., after 10 years. So I'm sorry to hear that, Chaz. We really enjoyed Bob the Cat's participation. Tony, NT5TM, please go ahead with your announcements.
Good evening, Bill. Tonight's Afterglow movie discussion will focus on Back to the Future from 1985. It's in color. It's in stereo. It had a big budget. It's coherent, at least, well enough to follow it. And I bet you've probably seen it, even if you didn't join us last weekend at Field Day to watch it in person. So please join us at about 10:30-ish, 10:35 tonight, and talk about the movie. Tomorrow night, we have two club nets, well, sort of. The DARC meeting on the air at 7 p.m. is open to all hams who'd like to share what's been going on in their ham world. And then we have the Racies training net at 8, which everyone may listen to, but only Racies appointees may check in. This Monday will feature a ham fixins net at 7 p.m. on this repeater. Please bring your recipes, cooking tips, and kitchen stories. I will be filling in as NCS. I have a lot fewer recipes than Randy does, and I will need your help. This Tuesday will be the Dallas Amateur Radio Club in-person meeting. I'll be presenting on antenna tuners, or transmatches, or matchboxes, or whatever you call those things. Why you need one, what they do, and why they're such a great idea. Well, unless you drop them on your foot. Join us at 6 p.m. for the board meeting or 7 p.m. for the general meeting with the antenna tuner program in the third floor community room of the Dallas Medical Center. That's the northeast corner of Webb Chapel and LBJ. Yes, it's a hospital, but parking is free. More details at w5fc.org. Thank you for listening. NT5TM.
Thank you very much, Tony. I have a couple of quick announcements. A week from today, on Saturday, July the 11th at 10 a.m. till 2 p.m., there will be a special event station run by the Irving Amateur Radio Club. This is N5C/D. This is a special event station going around the country, N5C, and the /D means it's going to be here in the Dallas area. So this will be in Irving at the Betcho Bingo, where we have our Ham Fest next Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And it ends at 2 p.m. Then that's 1 week from today. 2 weeks from today, we have Moon Day at the Frontiers of Flight Museum at Love Field. The festivities there start at 10 a.m. and they end at 4 p.m. And I'm sure the Dallas Amateur Radio Club will be there. In fact, Bill, KF5ZBL, can you confirm that? Well, maybe he stepped away. Are there any officers with Dallas Amateur Radio Club that confirm that they'll have an activity at Moon Day this year in 2 weeks?
Bill.
There you are. Go right ahead, Bill.
Yeah, we'll be there. I plan to be there. We'll have our meeting, and we'll ask for volunteers and everything. But yes, we'll be at the table next to ANSAT, as far as I have been told. So we'll see what happens. Okay, how's the Bill?
Thank you very much. National Space Society, North Texas chapter will be there. And normally the Civil Air Patrol is there, and also the Dallas Mars Society, or the Mars Society of Dallas. So, We've got various things coming up here on the next couple of weeks. And in 3 weeks, at the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History, this is located near the Museum District in Fort Worth. We have Space Day. This is going to be on July the 25th, Saturday, 3 weeks from today. And the National Space Society North Texas chapter will be there for that event. So do we have any other events that anybody would like to bring up? Or do we have any questions or comments about any of these events? This is N5BB. This is Skynet. Nothing heard. AMSAT, the Radio Amateur Satellite Group, has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. There's a national AMSAT net on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Get on Echolink. Under groups, look for asterisk, AMSAT asterisk. You can also go to www.amsatnet.com. Here in Dallas on Tuesday evenings, there is an AMSAT net on this repeater at 8 p.m. on Tuesday. The problem is, this coming Tuesday, we have the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting, and so we will not have that net this coming Tuesday. But on Wednesday, we do have a net that's on the Arlington repeater. This is Wednesday at 9 p.m. There's an AMSAT satellite net on the Arlington 147.14 megahertz repeater, 110.9 PL tone with a positive offset. Again, you can find out about satellite things next week, amateur satellites, going to 147.14 at 9 p.m. on Wednesday. The Dallas Amateur Club has a lot of nets on Mondays at 7 p.m. And on other nights. So on Mondays, the first week of the month, we have ham fixing net about cooking. That's what will be coming up this current week. And there's other things going on later Mondays. Then on Saturday evenings, we have TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m., all things technical and news about amateur radio and other things. Then we have the net you're listening to, Skynet, from 9 to 10:30 p.m. And then at 10:30 p.m., we have the Afterglow Movie Net, where we talk about a movie. More about that later. And then on the first and third Sundays, there's the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air at 7 p.m. on Sunday evening. And then at 8 p.m. on the first and third Sundays, there's the RACES training net, only for RACES members. Anybody can listen, but only RACES members are allowed to transmit due to FCC regulations. Every night, there's a net at 6:30 p.m. on this repeater, and that is the National Traffic System Early Training Net. The only exception is on the first Tuesday of the month, when we have a club meeting, so the training net will be on the Irving WA5CKF repeater. Also, every evening at 9:30 p.m., the lake traffic net is on the Irving WA5CKF repeater, which is 146.72 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. All are welcome to check in on any of these nets. The rule when you check in the nets is listen first and only check in at the appropriate time when net control directs it. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. It's now time to talk about our Afterglow movie this evening. This movie was shown at Field Day last Saturday. I was out of town, so I missed it. Tom, K5ICX, can you tell us about the very, very precise write-up on our Afterglow movie?
this is KE5ICX, and I'm down in Corpus. Here we go. Dr. Brown was a genius, a smart cookie, top in his class, capable, competent, resourceful, and eccentric. And the Homeowners Association was on the warpath, from nuclear radiation killing everyone's lawn to loud noises coming from his latest heavy water experiments, specifically in the HOA violation list, which they had assembled month after month, meeting after meeting, usually with his name, Brown, used as an adjective as each new violation was added to the long list of offenses. Marty, Doc Brown's young friend, came by. He received an email from the good doctor, but it had to be delivered by the local postman, as the internet hadn't been invented yet. Already sitting in Brown's living room was Huey Lewis and the News, tuning up for something. So join us tonight at 10:30 p.m. when we discuss the classic Back to the Future from 1985. Yes, it was that long ago, folks. Betsy Bill, KE5, ICX.
Yes, we are in the future, and we're going back to the future. That's confusing, but you have to see the movie. Time travel movies are always very confusing. They're always illogical. Okay, this is in 5BB. This is Skynet. Do we have any additional check-ins? If so, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas. Alpha, India 5, Oscar, Lima, Dan, southwest Fort Worth.
Alpha Charlie 5, Victor Charlie, Cecil, and Mesquite.
Oh, very good. I recognize W5GUS. Hello, Gus. I'm glad you're here. AI5OL, Dan. By the way, I'm hearing fireworks outside somewhere not too far from my location in Irving. Anyway, AI5OL, hello, Dan, in Fort Worth. And Cecil, AC5VC in Mesquite. Thank you very much for joining us. Do we have any other stations I'd like to check in? Okay. This is N5DD, and this is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club Skynet in progress. Chaz, KF5JHA, tell us about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas.
Well, thank you, Bill. Good evening, everyone. On July the 24th, I should say happy birthday, America, before I do anything else. On July the 24th is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting is going to be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. There's also a Zoom component for members. I don't know the featured speaker yet, and I'm not sure about the topic. Now, let's see, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas hosts Saturday night public observing sessions in this area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the first Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, stargazing is held at Fairview. Yep, at Fairview. I'm not sure if it's happening, but do we have a ham radio operator that is at the stargazing that would like to make a report? Please come now with your call sign. I did not check to see if it was canceled due to the holiday or not. So anyway, you can check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. By the way, if you look at that bright object over there in the west after sunset, that bright object is Venus. It's an easy target for anybody to look at with your 2 eyes, binoculars, or a telescope. This is KF5, JHA, back to net control.
Thank you very much, Chaz. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Yes, at the Irving 4th of July parade event this morning, mid-morning, I saw the moon. It was rather easy to see in the clear sky. So it was clear and hot today because of that. And as you may have heard, I heard this afternoon that the events on the National Mall were canceled due to severe storms in the Washington, D.C. area. Okay. Do we have any additional check-ins to Skynet? If so, please come down. Nothing heard. Unfortunately, you're going to have to listen to me for a while now. We're going to talk about the National Space Society first. This is N5BB, and I happen to be the Vice President and the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas Chapter. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just search for National Space Society of North Texas in the Facebook search. I now have a news item related to space things in Texas. The 2026 Humans to the Moon and Mars Summit. The acronym is H2M2. H2M2. This is sponsored by Explore Mars. It's coming to Houston, Texas, July 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of this year. 2026 could be the most critical year in the history of the U.S. space program. In addition to the launch of Artemis 2 to the moon, decisions will need to be made that can determine whether we achieve our moon and Mars objectives, and if the United States remains the preeminent leader in space exploration. These topics and many more will be discussed at H2M2 in Houston. I'm not really familiar with Explore Mars, but I saw that news item related to space in Texas, so I thought I'd go on and put it out. July 21st to 23rd. Again, it's called the 2026 Humans to the Moon and Mars Summit. Now, the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society has a monthly meeting at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month at Spring Creek Barbecue on Highway 183 in Irving. Our next chapter meeting will be in about 1 week on Sunday, July the 12th. The topic will be Roman the Stars. This is a joke. It's R-O-M-A-N, the Stars. It's by Cynthia Wisnot, N5TFB, and her husband Dietrich Wisnot, KI5L. The Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope is slated to launch no later than May of 2027, with the launch team aiming for as early as fall of this year for the launch. The observatory will survey the infrared skies to provide transformative science on astrophysics, cosmology, and exoplanets. With its wide field instrument, Roman will have a field of view about 100 to 200 times wider than the James Webb Space Telescope and Hubble, and will conduct Hubble quality science 1,000 times faster. With its coronagraph instrument, Roman will demonstrate next-generation technology for the first time ever in space to directly image exoplanets, paving the way for future missions to image Earth-like planets in search for life. Again, this is the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, and we'll be talking about it in person and on WebEx virtually a week from tomorrow. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in North Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. 10 people attended the June event, even though I was out of town, so couldn't be there. The next Space Rendezvous event is just a social event about people interested in humans in space, will be held on Friday, July the 31st. If you have any questions about the National Space Society or any of these events I discussed, please contact Bill N5BB at his QRZ listed email address or at space@byrom.net, SPACE@BYROM.net. And this is N5BB, this is Skynet. I don't see any other check-ins on the web form or Echolink, but does anybody want to check in via any mode? If so, please come down. Okay, next we have a discussion topic of the evening, so unfortunately you have to listen to me some more. Or you can, if you wish, listen to me some more. I'm not logged into the web link, but if you're logged into that, hopefully you'll see a lot of pictures for this. Again, I haven't double-checked to see if Tom got them up there or not. So, the discussion topic this evening will be the International Space Development Conference last month near Washington, D.C. The acronym for this is ISDC, International Space Development Conference, and it's sponsored by the National Space Society. The title for this one this year was Space for Us All. And this is a combination of items I got from the National Space Society press release and an email called NSS Download Link and other sources. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. The first photo, which you can't see unless maybe you're logged into the stream, is Apollo 17 astronaut Harrison Jack Schmitt, and he spoke. He is 90 years old, I believe, and he is really sharp, very smart guy. He's a geologist. So the National Space Society's annual International Space Development Conference, or ISDC, was held June 4th through 7th in McLean, Virginia, which is near Washington, D.C. On the day before the conference, a shuttle bus took conference attendees to the Smithsonian Udvar-Hazy Center at Dulles Airport for a tour of this space and aviation museum. There's a space shuttle, a SR-71 Blackbird, and lots of airplanes and other space things there. So I drove my electric vehicle all the way up there from Texas and attended both the museum tour and the space conference. Several other members of the North Texas National Space Society chapter also attended this conference, and it was great fun. The ISDC 2026 event was widely praised by attendees, with one of the best domestic attendance records in recent years. Over 1,000 leading executives, managers, engineers, scientists, educators, students, and lay people from a wide variety of backgrounds joined in to work toward the common goal of developing a spacefaring civilization. The conference will be in its 45th year next year. It hosted NASA leaders, space entrepreneurs, academics, scientists, engineers, and young space leaders. Attendees included space professionals, space advocates, students, and space enthusiasts. The conference is the largest of its kind, with over 1,000 attendees annually, and welcomes ordinary citizens as well as space professionals. And this is Skynet, inside BB Net Control. Featured speakers included Apollo 17 astronaut Harrison Schmitt. Apollo 17 was the last Apollo mission in 1972. So Harrison Schmitt was one of the last two humans to walk on the moon. Also, Apollo flight director Jerry Griffin, best-selling science fiction author David Brin, astronauts Michael Lopez Alegria, Stephen Hawley, Susan Kilrain, and Robert Hoot Gibson. Also featured were the principal investigator of NASA's Psyche mission, Lindy Elkins Tanton, former NASA chief scientist Jim Green, SETI Institute CEO Bill Diamond, planetary scientist Pascal Lee, and R.T. Halamani, the director of the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. This first presence of the United Nations representative at an ISDC was notable. There's then a picture of some astronauts and a picture of National Space Society President Isaac Arthur presenting an award to Dr. Shauna Pandya. So Dr. Shauna Pandya received an Excellence Award from National Space Society. She is the Director of Medical Research at Orbital Assembly Corporation and the first named female commercial Canadian astronaut. And she'll be flying to space with the Virgin Galactic Delta class of spacecraft with the International Institute for Astronautical Sciences as early as late 2026. She is also an emergency and aeromedical transport physician and aquanaut, the director of the IIAS Space Medicine Group, the executive director of the IIAS Flight Opportunities Program, and the chief of space medicine at the Advanced Space Life Research Institute. Dr. Pandya was on the first crew to test a commercial spacesuit in zero gravity in 2015. And I won't read about the rest of it. She's an amazing person. So other things at ISDC, there are representatives from Firefly Aerospace, which is in a suburb of Austin, Axiom Space, which I believe is headquartered in Houston, and Vast Aerospace offered fascinating insights into the status of their efforts to build a commercial future in space. Their advice was aimed at a wide variety of attendees, from serial space entrepreneurs to students preparing to enter the workspace. As one example, Axiom chief astronaut Michael Lopez Alegria provided an exciting overview of his company's approach to to building a commercial space station for the post-International Space Station future. Additionally, key members of the Firefly Blue Ghost team received an award from the National Space Society honoring the first fully successful commercial landing on the moon. This is Skynet, and this is N5BB net control. By the way, if you haven't heard, the International Space Station is scheduled to be deorbited sometime probably between 2030 and 2032. And Axiom and some other companies are looking at setting up smaller commercial space stations to do research and in space when the space station is no longer with us. The Sunday morning ISDC Space 2.0 plenary panel focused on lunar bases, how and why they might be put in place, and what their key activities might be. Apollo astronaut Dr. Harrison Schmitt was joined by planetary scientist Dr. Pascal Lee, former NASA chief scientist Dr. Jim Green, and moderator Rod Pyle. The CEO of the SETI Institute, this is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, Bill Diamond, presented a very good, noteworthy talk on how SETI searches for potential signals from technologically advanced species beyond Earth, and gave a primer on other SETI activities. The National Space Society's education team hosted educational workshops and hundreds of student participants. There's both a Live in Healthy Space design competition and the Gerald K. O'Neill Space Settlement content. Over 29,000 students participated, not in person, but online, in the Gerald K. O'Neill Space Settlement contest, represented by 4,900 entries from 31 countries. So some of the students, they were in general in groups. So these 29,000 students made 4,900 entries from their groups, and they were from 31 different countries. Hundreds of these also attended the conference, and there were poster sessions where they presented some of their projects. The grand prize-winning team gave a presentation at an evening banquet. 3 finalist teams from the Martine Roseblatt Space Settlement in Our Lifetime Business Plan Competition presented their business plans, and 3 cash prizes were awarded. The winners took home a total purse of $32,000. There's also the National Space Society Young Professionals Initiative, and they had a lot going on. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. For the first time, the space elevator track at ISDC expanded to 2 sessions. The Mars, Moons, AI and Space, Space Health, Space Settlement, and a variety of other tracks were also featured at the conference. The ISDC provides more breadth of programming than any other space conference, designed to be valuable for space professionals and accessible by lay people. There's a picture here of best-selling author David Brin. He received the Arthur C. Clarke Award from the National Space Society for his space fiction. 2 podcasts were recorded live at ISDC this year. The International Space Development Conference is the oldest and largest citizen space conference in the world. Anyone is invited to attend. Special discounts are available for seniors, students, and National Space Society members. For more information on ISDC, see the conference website at isdc.nss.org. ISDC 2027 will be held next year in Los Angeles, California, on May the 27th to 30th at the Sheraton Gateway Los Angeles Hotel, which is adjacent to the LAX airport. That's all I've got for that session. Do we have any additional check-ins, questions, or comments? This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Okay, rolling right along. We've got Chaz back again. KF5JHA, this is N5BB. Chaz, what's up?
Thank you, Bill. Funny you said that, because that's the name of the segment. What's up? Yes, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up, because it's all about what has gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and maybe a bit beyond. That was slide number 2. Bill mentioned that we have a video version of Skynet. Yep, it's going on. I'm sitting here monitoring it on another screen. I've got 3 screens up in front of me right now. Maybe a 4th screen. Yeah, okay. And on one of the screens is a live version of Skynet on YouTube. If you want to go get that one, go to w5fc.org and click on that link, and then you'll find the link for Skynet, the video version of Skynet. Okay, Slide Master, slide number 3. And the Slide Master is Tom. Thank you, Tom. We've talked about the predicted nova of the star called P Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude, I just checked a few minutes ago, which is much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. P Corona Borealis was supposed to go nova about 2 years ago. One recent prediction was for T Corona Borealis to go nova around June the 25th, a week ago. Well, that has not happened. But when T Corona Borealis does go nova, it could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. Now, I can see the North Star with just my 2 eyes from my very light-polluted location here in Mesquite, Texas. Slide Master, slide number 4. We've had an interesting thing going on over the last 10 days or so. We'll talk about that in just a second. This image of the sun was taken on July the 1st. I grabbed that from the website spaceweather.com. I go there usually almost every day to check on what currently is going on in the sky. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that all you need is your solar eclipse glasses to see them. And over the last 10 days, we've had a naked eye sunspot that all you need was your solar eclipse glasses to see it. Now, the sun has just passed its 11-year solar maximum. We believe it happened around October of 2024. I presented information on the solar cycle about 4 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5. On June the 29th, the moon was full. So the current phase of the moon that Bill saw this morning is a waning gibbous. 3rd quarter moon is on July the 7th. That's just in a couple of days. On July the 13th, the moon is at perigee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 359,112 kilometers. New moon is on July the 14th. July the 21st is the 1st quarter moon. On July the 25th, the moon is at apogee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth. This was the 405,548 kilometers. Full moon is on July the 29th. Slide Master, slide number 6. Okay, Bill, I don't know if you saw it this morning, but in the early morning sky, that was this morning, July the 4th, there was a conjunction of Mars and Uranus in the eastern morning sky. Now, Uranus you can't see with your 2 eyes. You need a pair of binoculars at least. A telescope makes it even better. Mars and Uranus were so close together they were in the same telescopic field of view this morning. They'll be pretty close tomorrow morning in the sky, so if you've never seen Uranus through a telescope, that would be the time to do it. Slide Master, slide number 7. On July the 6th, just in a couple days, at 12:31 p.m., is the half billion of the sun, of the Earth, excuse me. That's when the Earth is closest, that's when the Earth is furthest from the sun. Yep, how close we are to the sun or how far away we are from the sun has nothing to do with our seasons. It just varies a little bit. It's the tilt of the Earth's axis that causes the seasons. So aphelion of the Earth happens at 12:31 on July the 6th. Slide master, slide number 8. On July 7th, in just a few days, there's a conjunction of the Moon, Saturn, Neptune, the minor planets Pallas and Vesta in the eastern morning sky. The eastern morning sky is crowded with all sorts of things together. Slide master, slide number 9. On July the 9th, there's a conjunction of Venus and Regulus in the western evening sky. Yep, Venus is that bright thing over there in the western sky right now while you're watching fireworks. Slide master, slide number 10. On July the 11th, there's a conjunction of the Moon, Mars, and Uranus in the eastern morning sky. And slide master, slide number 11. On July the 13th, there's a conjunction of Mars and Aldebaran in the northeastern morning sky. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 12. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information I've given you? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. My degree's in astrophysics. I might be able to answer that question. Or someone else on this net might be able to answer your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Okay, I don't hear anything, so slide master, slide number 13. So as the moon wanes right now, so do these words of this segment of Skynet: stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live permanently. Until next time, actually I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet, which is transmitting on the W5FC repeater in Dallas, Texas, at 146.88 megahertz. Skynet is also available on Echolink and YouTube. Just talked about Echolink a few minutes ago. YouTube just a few minutes ago as well. Now back to our net control. Bill, it's yours. N5BB.
Well, thank you, Chess. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. In progress. Do we have any additional check-ins, comments, or questions? Okie doke. Let's move on to our next section. This is with Gus, W5GUS. Gus, what's going on with space exploration and space history? This is N5BB. And this is Skynet. Go ahead, Gus.
Okay, thank you, Bill. W5GUS here with space exploration news. Quite a bit has been going on, Bill. Start with the NASA astronaut Chris Williams completed a spacewalk, a long one, lasting 7 hours and 20 minutes on June 30th, outside the International Space Station. The primary objective was to replace a malfunctioning wrist joint on the Canadarm 2 robotic arm, which ensured that the station's main robotic manipulator remains fully operational for future spacecraft dockings and scientific work. Also on June 30th, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman and Program Manager Carlos Garcia Galan conducted a virtual briefing detailing the agency or NASA's revised strategy for establishing a permanent human outpost near the lunar South Pole by 2032. The update highlighted new awards for lunar lander development and 3 distinct phases of buildup for the Artemis moon camp. Also on June 30th, the global space community commemorated International Asteroid Day to raise public awareness about asteroid impact hazards and planetary defense efforts. Scientific agencies highlighted recent progress in tracking near-Earth objects and the results of planetary defense missions. Okay, move on to July the 1st. A couple days ago, the International Space Station performed a scheduled reboost maneuver using the engine of a docked cargo vehicle to raise the space station's orbit. This operational adjustment prepares the station for the arrival of upcoming crew and cargo spacecraft scheduled later this month. Okay, July the 3rd, yesterday, a Northrop Grumman Pegasus XL rocket was deployed from its L-1011 carrier aircraft at 4:36 a.m. Eastern on July the 3rd, after 3 days of delays caused by weather and technical issues. The rocket placed its payload, which was a 425-kilogram Link LINK spacecraft, into low Earth orbit nearly 13 minutes later. NASA said in a statement more than 7 hours later that controllers had established contact with Link, but did not provide any additional information about the status of the spacecraft or the mission. All right, we'll end that on that mysterious note and go to space-related birthdays. Okay, June 28th, John Lounge was born, 1946, June 28th. He served as a mission specialist on STS-51, which successfully deployed 3 communication satellites and retrieved a disabled SYNCOM satellite. He also flew on STS-26, which was the first space shuttle flight after the Challenger disaster, helping to safely launch a tracking and data relay satellite. Okay, June 29th, 1955, Charles Precourt was born. He was a ham, or is a ham, KB5YSQ. He piloted the historic STS-71 mission in 1995, which marked the first docking of a space shuttle with the Russian space station Mir. He later served as commander on 2 subsequent Mir docking missions, and in which transported crew members and vital logistics. Okay, June 29, 1962, George Zemka was born, a ham, KC-5ZSX. He served as the pilot for STS-120, a mission that delivered the Harmony module to the International Space Station. He later commanded STS-130, which successfully installed the Tranquility node and the cupola viewing port. Okay, June 30th, 1951, Stephen Oswald was born, a ham, KB5YSR. He piloted the STS-42 and STS-56 mission, which conducted extensive microgravity and atmospheric studies. He later commanded STS-67, which was the second flight of the Astro Observatory payload, setting a shuttle duration record at the time. Okay, July 1st, 1962, Kalpana Chawla was born, July 1st, 62. She made her first space flight on STS-87 as a mission specialist and primary robotic arm operator. Tragically, she lost her life during the STS-107 mission when Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated during re-entry. Okay, also July 1st, but in 1963, Ed Lu was born, a ham, KC-5WKJ. He performed a spacewalk during STS-106 to prepare the ISS for its first permanent crew. He later served as commander of Expedition 7, spent 6 months on the station, and co-invented the gravity tractor concept for asteroid deflection. Also on July 1st, but in 1977, Jessica Meir was born. She launched to the International Space Station aboard Soyuz MS-15 and spent 205 days in space. During her mission, she made history by participating in the first 3 all-female spacewalks alongside Christina Koch. Okay, July 2nd, 1940, Grigory Ivanov was born. He became the first Bulgarian cosmonaut when he launched aboard the Soyuz 33 mission in 1979. Although an engine failure prevented docking with the Salyut 6 space station, he and his commander executed a dramatic ballistic re-entry to land safely. Okay, move on to July 2nd, 1952. Linda Godwin was born. She conducted a spacewalk during the STS-76 mission to install scientific packages on the exterior of the Mir space station. She logged over 38 days in space across 4 flights, including the delivery of supplies and crew to the ISS on STS-108. Okay, also born on July 2nd, but 7 years later in 1959, Wendy Lawrence was born, a ham, KC-5KII. She flew on STS-86 and 91 to assist with supply transfers and operations during dockings with the Mir space station. She later served as a mission specialist on STS-114, which was the return to flight mission following a couple years following the Columbia disaster. Okay, and July 3rd, 1935, here's a name you've heard a little earlier tonight. Harrison Schmitt was born, July 3rd, 1935. He served as lunar module pilot on Apollo 17, which was the final crewed Apollo mission to the moon. He remains the only professional scientist to have walked on the moon, where he conducted extensive geological field work. And Harrison Schmitt was, you heard Bill talk about him a little earlier. He was the 91-year-old geologist who spoke at the National Space Society convention where Bill attended this a couple weeks ago. Also sharing July 3rd as a birthday, but in 1943, Norman Thagard was born. He became the first American to launch on a Russian rocket when he flew aboard Soyuz TM-21 to the Mir space station. He spent 115 days on Mir conducting scientific experiments before returning to Earth on the Space Shuttle Atlantis. Okay, born July 4th, 1961, having a birthday today, Richard Garriott, that is, July 4th, 1961, a ham, W5KWQ. He flew to the International Space Station as a self-funded space tourist under a deal with Space Adventures company. During his 12 days of space, he conducted various scientific experiments and educational outreach projects. Okay, let's move on to this week in space history, events of this week in space history. July 5th, 1989, the Soviet Union launched the Phobos 2 spacecraft to study Mars and its moon, Phobos. The mission's objectives included imaging the Martian surface and analyzing the environment around Phobos. Phobos 2 successfully entered Mars orbit and transmitted valuable data, including detailed images of the Martian surface and Phobos. However, the mission was cut short when contact with the spacecraft was lost just before its planned landing on Phobos. Despite the early termination, the mission provided critical insights into Mars and its moon. Okay, July 6, 1965, Intelsat-1, also known as Early Bird, was launched into geostationary orbit. As the world's first commercial communications satellite, it revolutionized global telecommunications by enabling live television broadcasts, telephone calls, and data transmissions across the Atlantic Ocean. Early Bird provided reliable communication links between North America and Europe, significantly impacting international media and commerce. Its success paved the way for the development of modern global satellite communications network. Okay, and lastly for this week, on July 7th, 2003, NASA launched the Opportunity rover as part of its Mars Exploration Rover program. That was July 7th, 2003. The rover embarked on a mission to explore a Martian surface, analyze rock and soil samples, and search for signs of past water activity. After landing in January 2004, Opportunity exceeded expectations, operating for nearly 15 years, which was far beyond its planned 90-day mission. The rover traveled over 28 miles, discovered evidence of ancient water flows, and provided invaluable data on Mars' geological history before its mission was declared complete in 2019. So, landing in January 2004, declared complete 2019. It's quite a run for a 90-day mission. Okay, well, that's it for this week. We'll move back to net control and look forward to Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week and some jokes. Back to you, Bill, W5GUS.
A very good guess. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Do we have any additional check-ins?
Yes, this is Whiskey November 5, Romeo November Whiskey, transmitting mobile out of DFW Airport. This is Patrick.
Hello, Patrick. I reckon I have WN5R and W. Do we have any additional check-ins? Okay, I don't see anybody else on the web form or on Echolink. So, now let's move to the next section of the net. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, complete with jokes. Go ahead, Chaz. KF5JHA. This is N5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening once again, everyone. Slide Master, slide number 14. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent T. Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012. Yep, we are in our 16th year of Skynet. So she contributed from 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 50 visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Ms. Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Scorpius, the Scorpion. Now, Scorpius is the constellation of the Scorpion and is one of the few constellations that look more or less like the creature it represents. Another one would be Delphinus. That's what I would think. Anyway, we'll talk about Delphinus sometime in the near future. The best-known mythology regarding Scorpius has the Scorpion as the mortal enemy of Orion, the mighty hunter. Orion boasted that there was not an animal on Earth that he could not conquer. To punish him for his vanity, the goddess Juno sent the Scorpion to spring out of the earth and sting Orion, killing him. At the request of goddess Diana, Orion was placed in the sky among the stars. Scorpius was also placed in the sky as well, but in the point exactly opposite from where Orion was placed, so that when Scorpius rises, Orion sets, and vice versa. So the two never are seen in the sky at the same time. Slide Master, slide number 15, the jokes of the week. Now, if you're new to Skynet, if you're over on Echolink, you can sit there and make comments about the jokes. That would be good. If you're over on, well, it doesn't look like, yeah, there's at least one other person over on the YouTube version of Skynet. So you're welcome to make comments as well. And the jokes are related to the constellation of the week. So here we go. The Scorpion killed Orion in a battle, and both were placed in the sky. Fill in the rest of it. They were placed in the sky as a constellation prize. Come on, that was funny. Imagine you're about to be attacked by a giant scorpion. What do? Stop imagining it. What do you call a scorpion that has just scored a goal? A scorpion. The astronomer said, I don't believe in astrology at all. But I am a Scorpio, and we're all born skeptics. What do you have when you cross a scorpion and a fish? Well, stingray, of course. And the final one, here we go. You're welcome to boo or hiss or clap. I walked into the house and I spotted a scorpion. It watched every step I took. How would you fill in the rest of it? It must have been a sting operation. Slide Master, slide number 16. Antares is the brightest star in the Scorpion, called Alpha Scorpii. Literally means the rival of Antares. Antares is the Greek name for the planet Mars. So it's often translated as the rival of Mars instead. Its name comes from the fact that it is so much like Mars because of its red color, the fact that it shines at about the same brightness that Mars does much of the time. During those times when Mars is in the constellation of Scorpius or Ophiuchus, and near Antares, the two make quite an interesting pair. Antares is the first magnitude M-type or red star in the sky. It's also a supergiant star. It's so large that if Antares were placed in the center of our solar system instead of our sun, the entire orbit of Mars would be inside the star, not to mention Mercury, Venus, and Earth. My friend Dennis Harwell says, if with this in mind, Antares and Mars were truly rivals, my money would be on Antares. Antares is also a double star. It has a faint companion that is slightly over 2 2 arcseconds away and shining somewhere around 5th or 6th magnitude. It requires good optics and good seeing to split this pair. The color of the companion star is often reported as a greenish color, although there's not really any true green stars in the sky. It's probably a bluish color. Our next star is Akrab, or Beta Scorpii. It simply means the scorpion in Arabic. Beta Scorpii is also a double star and is much easier to split than Antares, earning it a place on the double star list of the Astronomical League Urban Observing Club. Both stars are type B or blue-white, and not much color contrast between them either. Slide master, slide number 17. The object M4 is the globular cluster, and the single object M4 is listed in 5 different Astronomical League observing clubs. M4 is a fairly easy to find since it is in the same low-power field of view as Antares and nearby Sigma Scorpii. M4 is more coarsely populated than many other globular star clusters. Some photographs show a denser vertical bar of stars across the center of the cluster. Visual observers have seen this as well. In his book, The Messier Object, Stephen James Amiro likens the vertical bar to a splitting pupil of a cat's eye. Slide master, slide number 18. Another Messier object, M80, is another globular star cluster. It's easy to find M80 because it's simply a draw line between Antares and Beta Scorpii. M80 is very near the midpoint of that line. M80 is smaller than M4, but is more densely populated globular star cluster. Due to its small size, in a 3-inch scope at low power, it is almost star-like in center and not, well, only a bit faint wisps of outlining stars can be seen. In larger telescopes, like an 8 or 10-inch telescope, the outer regions of M80 are better resolved into stars, but the core looks simply like a solid white to many observers. Slide master, slide number 19. Messier object M6. Wow, there's another one we'll talk about in a minute, M7. M6 and M7 were the very first 2 M objects that I found on my own with my 2-inch Tasco telescope. M6 is an open star cluster that's long been known as the butterfly cluster because many observers see the shape of a butterfly formed by the stars. The cluster is about 100 members of stars spread out over an area of about 26 arc minutes in diameter, just slightly smaller than the full moon's diameter. Slide master, slide number 20. And M7, Messier object number 7, is a naked eye Messier object. M7 is sometimes referred as the Ptolemy cluster because it was first written about by Claudius Ptolemy back in the 2nd century. M7 is easy to find since it's visible to the naked eye. Just look for the fuzzy area at the stinger of the scorpion. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 21. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Scorpius, the Scorpion. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 96 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin from the Astronomical League in about a year. Slide number 22, and that is Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Scorpius the Scorpion. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I borrow and steal for every Skynet. I also use at times the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next week we'll take a look at Hercules, the strongman. And this is KF5JJ Chaz saying good night at 73, back to our net control. And Happy New Year. Oh wait, no, it's happy birthday to America.
Thank you, Chaz. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Do we have any additional check-ins, questions, or comments? If so, please come down. Okay. Tom, K5ICX, we're doing pretty good on time. You want to talk to us about space launches of the week and visible satellite passages? Go right ahead. K5ICX, this is N5BB, and this is Skynet.
Well, thank you, Bill. Let's see here. We've got July 5th, that's tomorrow. There'll be a Falcon 9 Starlink 10-50 launch from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral in Florida. 29 Starlink V2 mini-optimized satellites will be launched into low Earth orbit, and then the first stage booster will be returned and land on the drone ship of Shortfall of Gravitas. On July 7th, the Falcon 9 Transporter 17 launch. That is from SLC-4 Echo in Vandenberg, out California. Falcon 9 rocket will launch a collection of 81 payloads on a ride-share mission to a sun-synchronous Earth orbit. The first stage booster, launching on its for the 11th time, will land on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You. On July 9th, Falcon 9 Starlink 10-42 will launch from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. That's 29 Starlink V2 mini-optimized satellites will be launched into low Earth orbit. July 10th, 11th, Falcon 9 Starlink 17-48. This one from Vandenberg, SLC-4E. This will be 24 Starlink V2 mini-optimized satellites into low Earth orbit. The first stage brought back. It'll be its 35th time for its return. On July 13th, Starlink 15-14, SLC-4E from Vandenberg. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? 24 Starlink V2 mini-optimized satellites be launched into low Earth orbit. The first stage booster will be returning for the 23rd time, and it'll land on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You. Next up is to be determined. We have coming up Onward and Upward. This is the Spectrum launch. Launch Complex 1 of Doya Spaceport in Norway. A Spectrum rocket with the ISAR Aerospace will launch on its second test flight. The rocket is carrying 5 CubeSats, and I'm not going to list them all because they're real tongue twisters, but these are from various educational institutions. It will be EXO Launch is responsible for managing all the payloads, integrations, and deployments. So there's a company that's actually hired to make all these things fit inside the rocket and talk to one another appropriately. Finally, there is to be determined Flight A008 from Vandenberg. This one is the Firefly Alpha rocket will launch on a mission for a yet unannounced customer. This will be the debut of the Block 2 iteration of the rocket, which features larger liquid oxygen tanks on both the first and second stages, increasing the overall length of the rocket by 2 meters. Let's see here. Let me skip on down here to visible satellite passages over the next few days. The International Space Station. Let me try that again. The International Space Station has several good passes. July 5th, there's a minus 2.0 magnitude out of the south-southeast, reaches highest point at 15 degrees at 21:14, and it'll fall to the east at 21:16. 90 minutes later, there is a slightly better pass, same ISS, minus 2.3 magnitude. This is at 22:47. The west-southwest reaches highest point at 39 degrees at 22:50, and it'll fall to the north-northeast at 22:54. July 6th, minus 1.6 magnitude at 5:20 a.m. This will reach 30 degrees at 5:23, and it'll fall to the east-southeast at 5:26. July 6th again, this time in the evening, minus 0.6 magnitude. This is extremely bright. At 21:59, out of the southwest to reach its highest point in 75 degrees. At 22:02, it'll fall to northeast at 22:06. Next really good pass we have July 7th, minus 3.6 magnitude, another bright one at 21:11. Out of the south-southwest, reach its highest point at 53 degrees at 21:15. It'll fall to northeast at 21:18. Another great, brilliant pass, July 8th, minus 3.9 magnitude. This one at 5:20 a.m. out of the northwest. It reaches its highest point at 78 degrees at 5:24. It'll fall to southeast at 5:27. And I'll give you another really good pass. This one, July 9th, minus 2.9 magnitude. 4:32 a.m. and reach its highest point at 52 degrees at 4:36. It'll fall to the southeast at 4:39. Now I'm going to end there. I'm just reading you a sample of some of the passes. These are the brightest. This week is a great week to be looking at the International Space Station. Very favorable, high in the sky, very bright. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't gone out to take a look at it, this is the time. Just go to heavensabove.com and check it. ISDC is one of the one of the space stations in orbit. We have Tiangong that is also in orbit. This one also has several good passes, not quite as favorable as what we have with ISDC. So I'll list a couple of them for you. We have on July 5th, minus 1.6 magnitude. This is at 5:04 a.m. Reaches highest point at 58 is at 5:07, and it'll fall to the east-southeast at 5:10. Next good pass, July 6th, minus 1.5 magnitude at 5:41 a.m. It'll reach its highest point at 5:44, 34 degrees, and it'll fall to the south-southeast at 5:47. Next good pass, this is a pretty bright one, July 7th. This is at minus 2.3 magnitude at 4:44. This one's coming out of shadow, though, so you're going to get it at 71 degrees, but it will be bright when it does come out of shadow. It'll fall to the southeast at 4:47. Let's see, July 8th. Let me make sure I got this one. Yes, July 8th. This is the last of the really bright ones. This is minus 2.3 magnitude at 21:49 out of the southwest. Reaches highest point at 75 degrees at 21:52. It'll fall to the east-northeast at 21:55. This one also has a number of good passes. Not as bright as the International Space Station, but it's not quite as big, but it is pretty large. Should be easily visible from Dallas. Bill, that's all I've got for you tonight. Back to you. This is KE5 ICX down in Corpus Christi.
Okay, thank you, Tom. How about that? I'm net control and we're early. Okay, do we have any additional check-ins, questions, or comments? This is a 73 round. Anything else before I close the net? This is Skynet, N5BB, net control, a 73 round. Last chance. Tonight we had something like 20 check-ins. I'm not sure the exact number. Thank you very much. Everybody that checked in. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for new net control stations. If you're interested, send a message to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion of this net by going to w5fc.org and look at the links. Until next Saturday night, this is N5BB. Bill, I'll be closing the net at 10:26 p.m. Returning the repeater to normal amateur use after we have the afterglow net. 73, everybody. This is N5BB closing Skynet. Good evening.
Well, thank you, Bill. And this is KE5. ICS starting the Afterglow Movie Net in about 5 minutes. That gives you enough time to go make some microwave popcorn. Come on back and we'll talk about your favorite Back to the Future from 1985. This is KE5 ICS.
Normal state.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Okay, it is time for everyone to wander back to their computers, your radios, maybe your computers too, but your radios. And we're going to be talking about the movie Back to the Future from 1985. Hopefully you had a chance to see it at Field Day. I did with everybody at Field Day for Dallas Amateuria Club. Happened to be in town. Well, actually made it a purpose of getting into town to be with the group. And it was a good time. Hopefully you did too. At any rate, I'll give you a brief discussion about the movie. I think everyone knows the plot because everybody has seen this movie. But it says here under the Wikipedia, it's a 1985 American science fiction film directed by Robert Zemeckis. It stars Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Kristen Glover, and Thomas Wilson. Set in 1985, where Marty McFly, a teenager, accidentally sent back to 1955 in a time-traveling DeLorean automobile built by his eccentric scientist friend, Emmett Doc Brown, where he inadvertently prevents his future parents from falling in love, threatening his own existence, and is forced to reconcile them and somehow get back to the future. Gale and Zemeckis conceived the idea of Back to the Future 1980. They were desperate for a successful film after numerous collaborative failures, but the project was rejected more than 40 times by various studios because it was not considered raunchy enough to compete with the successful comedies of the era. A development deal was secured by Universal Pictures following Zemeckis' success directing Romancing the Stone. Fox was first choice to portray Marty, but was unavailable. Eric Stoltz was cast instead. Shortly after principal photography began in November of 1984, Zemeckis determined it was not right for the part and made concessions necessary to hire Fox, including refilming scenes already shot with Stoltz and adding $4 million to the budget. Back to the Future was filmed in and around California and on sets on Universal Studios and concluded the following April. It says here, after highly successful test screenings, the release date was brought forward to July 3rd, 1985. Busiest period of the theatrical year. The change resulted in a rushed post-production schedule and some incomplete special effects. Nevertheless, Back to the Future was a critical and commercial success, earning $381 million, becoming the highest-grossing film of 1985 worldwide. Critics praised the story, humor, and cast, particularly Fox, Lloyd, Thompson, and Glover. It received multiple award nominations. Its theme song, The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News, was also a success. It says Back to the Future has since grown in esteem and is now considered by critics and audience to be one of the greatest science fiction films among the best films ever made. In 2007, the United States Library of Congress selected it for preservation in the National Film Registry. The film was followed by two sequels, Back to the Future 2 and 3, one in 1989 and the one in 1990, spurred by the film's dedicated fan following and effect on popular culture. Universal Studios launched a multimedia franchise, which now includes video games, theme park rides, an animated television series, and a stage musical. Its enduring popularity has prompted numerous books about its production, documentaries, and commercials. All right, with that, you've been brought up to date on the whole Back to the Future thing, at least present time. We'll go ahead and get started. This is how this works. If you're listening for the first time, I think everybody has been here before, but that's okay. There may be some folks that have not. What we'll do is we'll take check-ins. I'll ask you for your call sign name. Did you see the movie? We're assuming you did, but even if you didn't, for some miracle that you've been under a rock somewhere, it's okay. You can check in, and we will tell you what we think of the movie, and then you can tell us if you want to see this movie. So that's the first part, check-ins, followed by we will ask you about the plot, what you think about it, followed by the characterization and acting, followed after that in a third round on anything else technical about the film, special effects, music, sound. Suddenly brought to your attention. So with that, we'll go ahead and take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Back to the Future from 1985? Here we go.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas. I did see the movie. I liked it, but I'm not feeling well, so I'll probably be quiet tonight.
This is in 5BB, November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. I've seen the movie now a couple of times. I liked it.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. I've seen this movie a bunch of times, including watching it again today.
Okay, let me get those three checked in. We've got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yes, he saw it. He's not feeling well. I'll ask you about your symptoms because I didn't feel all that great earlier this week. N5BB, Bill and Irving. Yes, he likes the film, so he'll talk about it. ND5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. She's seen it twice this week, if I can count correctly, so I'm thinking she really likes it. Anyone else want to check in? Please come down. All right, we'll give people a chance to check in a little bit later. I have to say, I had a primo seat during Skynet tonight. I actually looked out the window. I could see the fireworks display here in Corpus. I mean, it was perfectly framed out the window, so I couldn't have seen it any better any place here in the area. And it's usually a mob scene down here. It was last year. But I didn't get out. I did Skynet, but watched the fireworks right from this window. Pretty cool. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Tony, what are your symptoms, my friend? And what did you think about Back to the Future?
Well, I think I caught a cold at field day. I've got a really annoying dry cough. My nose is hardly even running at all, but I've got a low fever and a very annoying dry cough. So yeah, I really actually don't have much else to say. I think I'm going to just listen the rest of the net. I really had a great time, but I start coughing if I talk too much. NT5TM.
Okay, well, I was wondering because mine, I had the not dry cough, but I had the cough, and I had to put up with that yesterday. I got through it, and then it was Friday night? It's today Saturday, so Thursday night I was feeling kind of bad, and then Friday morning I was feeling better, but then I made it worse because I went out and ran and found out that I was not in the best of shape for that, but at any rate I managed to crawl back home. And then today it got better, but I'm still... Freeway as we passed each other going in opposite directions, but you didn't wave back. The plot for Back to the Future, or maybe more generally, why did you like this film from KE5, ICX?
You broke up, Tom. Were you turning it over to me? This is N5BB.
that's strange. Okay, I didn't get the bubble up, but let's try one more time. Bill, go ahead with your thoughts on the movie.
Very good, Tom. This is Inside BB. Yeah, you broke up just a moment where you're, I think, saying my name earlier. Okay, thank you very much. I think you said you might have waved at me going the other way. I doubt you saw my car, but it's possible. Anyway, very good. By the way, I had a bad sinus infection when I was driving up toward the International Space Development Conference exactly a month ago, the first week of June. I had a really bad sinus infection, so bad that when I was still hours away from destination, I went to a doctor at the CVS Minute Clinic and got a prescription for 20 penicillin pills. So, yeah, there's things going around. Be careful. Sinus infections are bad if you get one. Okay, Back to the Future, the 1985 movie. Well, I liked the movie, and I guess I'm supposed to talk about the plot. I liked the plot, and I liked the general way the movie was, laid out. It had excitement in it. It had melodrama. Of course, it was very fictional, and none of those things could have possibly happened just so perfectly to make it work. And, of course, it's time travel, and there's also always weird stuff goes on with time travel. But it was a good idea, I think, a good concept for the movie that made for the whole franchise of these movies. And they laid all that out in the first movie. This is N5BB, Afterglow Net in Progress. And I liked the way they did that. I liked the way it involves Marty and his parents, and the way that he meets his mother and father, and the way that Doc keeps coming back. So I like the DeLorean. So for your younger people, the DeLorean was a car by this guy named DeLorean, and it was this Cybertruck of the day, you might say. And it was interesting for a couple of years, and then the whole company went under. So this was a movie of its time. Could not have been made a few years earlier or later the way it was done, because the DeLorean didn't exist. And there's a lot of things in the movie from 1985. This is N5BB. Skateboards are getting really popular, and there were video cameras with videotape in them, which seemed like very old technology now, but was state-of-the-art in 1985, and the music and everything else. So I liked the concept. I liked the movie. I liked the photography. I liked everything, pretty much. I guess that's good for the first round, N5BB. Back to net.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And we got the first round kicked off here. Virginia, NV5F. You've seen the movie twice this week. Tell us, what did you think of the plot and anything else, I guess? Go ahead.
Okay, well, the reason I saw it twice is because my cousin and I did a Star Wars trilogy marathon on the weekend of May the 4th. I think it was actually May the 4th was on a Monday, so we had to do that over the weekend, and so we had talked at that time about that we needed to do. He suggested suggested Back to the Future. And I didn't have any plans for 4th of July, and we hadn't really made a plan to do this yet, so I texted him about it. I think it was day before yesterday, and he said, well, let's just do it this weekend. So we did it today, and so it just happened to fall on the week we were talking about this, a week after we watched it at Field Day. So that's why I watched it again. It wasn't like I was, trying to review it and know it better for tonight or anything. It's a movie I've seen so many times, I don't know how many times I've seen it. I did see it at the theater when it came out. I don't think I saw it at the theater more than once. I might have gone to see it a second time, but I don't remember that I did that. But I've just seen it a bunch of times, and I own it. And I do think that in the grand scheme of movies, this one is, it's one of those movies with just a really tight story. Everything kind of has a place, everything has a purpose in this plot. After the movie was over today, we were watching it on Blu-ray, and it's also the same on the DVD. When the movie ends, it immediately plays deleted scenes, and it's so funny when you see deleted scenes in movies, because so often you're like, why did they even bother shooting this? It's usually so superfluous, and even all the way down to the final screenplay and the shoot and everything, people think those scenes are necessary, and then the editors go, nope, we can live without this stuff. And I think the many years that it took for them to write this and get it sold and put it together, starting with Eric Stoltz and then having to reshoot a bunch of stuff with Michael J. Fox, and then just the combination of the producer, director, editor, writer, all these people, everything just worked, because it started as kind of a cheesy idea with like that the time machine was a washing machine or something, and then they're like, oh, let's have it be a car, and then the DeLorean was this sort of failed thing at the time, and I think if it hadn't been for Back to the Future, it would have been up there with, a few other failed automobiles that no one even remembers, because apparently, according to people now who, there's a lot of people who own DeLoreans because of this movie, and, according to some people I know, I guess, who've ridden in them or experienced them, they're really not very good cars, but they just look cool, and it was the perfect thing for this movie. It just all lined up at just the right time. But the plot of it, I think, is very, it's just for a time travel thing, it's tight. It kind of works. I'm sure you could punch a lot of holes in it from the time travel aspect, but if you just kind of let yourself go in for the fantasy of it, I think it works really well. It's fun to pick out all the little details that they get exactly right, especially when Marty goes back to the future and everything's changed just a little bit based on things he did to change the past, and his parents' marriage ends up improved, and he has an effect on things, and it's a really subtle effect, and his character arc in this is pretty subtle. It's not one of those hero's journey stories, and I think it's a good movie to illustrate the fact that that archetype has been kind of forced on everybody to make them think, now that if you don't have a big deep character arc or quest or change of heart or change of character in general, that you don't have a good story, and this movie proves that's just not true. It's just a good tight story, and everybody learns a little something. And I thought the plot with Marty meeting his parents and the whole kind of funny through line of his mom kind of having a crush on him, I thought that was I thought that was handled really well. I think in our 21st century deconstruction, revisionist mindset. People are acting like that's very weird and awkward, but it's not. I remember seeing this in the theater and thinking that that was funny, and it was a little bit tense. It added a little tension to the story and the plot that drove the plot forward, you know, as far as her asking him to the dance and him having to, you know, deal with his own sort of ego, you know, and but then the awkwardness of the fact that his mom liked him. And then, you know, at just the right moment, she's like, oh, this just isn't right, and it's so relieving, you know, like, oh, wow, she figures it out. Like, she doesn't know why, but she just knows that even though she has a total crush on him, that he's not the right person for her. And I thought that was handled really well. It could have been a disaster. It could have been super awkward or really inappropriate, and it never, ever was. And I thought it was just everything in this movie. It's kind of one of those perfect movies. I don't consider it science fiction. I think it falls in the scope of this group and the kind of things we watch. I consider it fantasy, adventure, comedy. I don't think of it as science fiction at all, but I love it. I've always loved it. I think that the DeLorean and the mobile time travel device built into a cool car really makes the story fun. You know, when I remember seeing this kind of sight unseen. The summer that I saw it, my sister and I were here in Texas. We were staying with our dad for the summer, and it was the summer that he and my stepmom had decided that TV was bad, and they didn't have a TV in the house, and so we spent the whole summer going to the library and reading a lot of books, and, you know, just playing outside, and it was fine. I don't know if it made our lives any more enriched. It mostly was frustrating. So I went to the movies to see this with my grandma and my cousin and my sister, and they were all excited about it. They were like, oh, it's the guy from Family Ties. It's Michael J. Fox. It's this movie about time travel. And when they said it was about time travel, even when I was 12, I was kind of like, I was 11, I think. No, I was 12, going on 13, and I remember even then thinking, oh, time travel, And then I saw it, and I was like, this is wonderful. It was just amazing. Even as a kid, I remember hearing the concept of it without seeing a trailer and thinking, oh, man, really? Time travel? Ugh. And I was completely surprised and delighted even at that age. And I wasn't cynical. I was travel sort of I had already be kind of like, you know, I did with that genre. But I loved this movie then, and I still think it's great. I think it's tight. I think it's fun, funny, adventurous, moves really well. The pacing's great. The balance in it has always been very good. The humor is balanced really well with the pathos and the drama and the melodrama. And I've just always loved Back to the Future. Think it's great. Back to Net, NV5F.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. Very good comments. Let me see here. Well, that's it. That's the bottom of the list. Let me see if anyone else would like to check in. We're talking about Back to the Future from 1985. You want to join us? Come now with your call.
Alpha Charlie 5, Victor Charlie, Cecil.
All right, we picked up Cecil, AC5VC. Well, Cecil, we put you on the spot. You saw the film, or I hope maybe you saw the film. What did you think of the plot for Back to the Future from 1985?
I saw the film when probably it had been out about a week or so. So there was a lot of excitement about it. I had teenagers at the time. They had seen it. They talked me into going to see it.
here in Mesquite at the Old Town East Theater around the mall. I liked the plot, and I was listening to everything that everybody else was saying, but I'm telling you, for me, what made the music was not the DeLorean or the story, but it was the music. It was Huey Lewis and the News. And I have a son that's very musical. I've been in music forever, and it's more of a hobby than anything now. But the music drove the movie for me, and it's always been something. Every time I hear on a KEOM here in Mesquite, every once in a while you hear Huey Lewis in the News, and that's what I always think of is Back to the Future, because to me that made the movie.
Probably because today is Independence Day and people are out at the fireworks and that. But maybe we'll get folks to check in. But don't go away, Cecil. Go a couple more rounds here. All right. I saw Billy on there, but she's not responded. Let me see if I can pull her out there. KF5 PDS. Billy, would you like to join in on the conversation? It's from KE5 ICX.
Hi, Tom. Yeah, I would love to check in. This is KFI PDS Billy in Sherman on Echolink. Yes, I've seen the film. I saw it when it first came out back in 1985. Saw it last week at Field Day and watched it again last night. They were doing a Back to the Future trilogy marathon on Sci-Fi, I believe, or it could have been AMC. I don't recall which channel, but they did. They showed all three movies back to back to back, and so I went ahead and watched it again and watched Back to the Future 2, which I really enjoy that one as well. So yes, I've seen the film. If you need more, just let me know. KF5 PDS, back to net.
Okay, well, finding out that this is an anniversary, this film came out on July 3rd, 1985, so we had an anniversary here, 41st anniversary, I guess. So, at any rate, did you want to make any comments about what you thought about the film, or first impressions when you saw it, or how you feel about it today, particularly the plot from KE5 ICX?
Yeah, sure, I'll make some comments. Yeah, watching it last night, I enjoyed it just as much as I did when I saw it when it first came out. I think it has really stood the test of time well. It has aged well, it's fun, and even if there's aspects of it that's dated, it adds to the kitschy fun of the film. I love the plot. It's a fun time travel romp, and love, everything about it. The music does it for me as well. Love Huey Lewis and the News music, and they contributed a lot of great tracks, and then I'll make more comments when we get to characters. But there's a lot of elements about this. They all come together in this wonderful way. And when it first came out, I thought it was incredibly clever, the way it was done, and watching it just here recently at Field Day, we all had a good time watching it there, and watching it last night, getting some popcorn out and just watching the film, I was still just as enthusiastically involved in it as I was when it first came out. So I still very much enjoy the film. We'll usually watch it when it comes on, because it's just a fun film and very well acted, and the plot is very active. It keeps you engaged. It's fun. There are a lot of laugh out loud moments. So I thoroughly enjoy the film, and will continue to do so as the years go on. So with that, I'll return it to you, Tom. This is KFI PDS, back to net.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Billy. Okay, I'll make my comments. I absolutely agree with everyone else. I love this film. I enjoyed it. It was great fun. I'll go with the soundtrack as well, but I also like the Alan Silvestri score that went along with it. That's quite a romp. That really makes it work too. But I'll go with that in a little bit. I love comedies which kind of toy or play with science fiction or science fiction concepts, and they do it in sort of a loose, fast and loose way. They don't take it totally seriously, but they don't discard it as a plot point. In other words, there is a sort of a stakes to be had. There are things that have to happen for our characters, and we have to be invested. So it has to have a story that works. It can be irreverent, which this one is somewhat irreverent. But the thing is, when you're talking about time travel, this is one thing. We don't know how time travel works except from that Einstein version. But nobody's apparently gone back in time where we've met no time travelers that can prove that they've time traveled. And they've even done studies to find out, checking Google to see if anybody Googled an event that hadn't happened yet. So far, no dice. It hasn't happened. We haven't had Marty McFly or Doc Brown query the internet and find. Hasn't happened. So unfortunately, we'll never know what time travel really does look like, or whether people disappear when they meet themselves, or they can't meet themselves, or whatever the rules of the road are, depending on whatever story, time travel story you glob on to. But it's a lot of fun. I don't want to talk about the cast quite yet, because the chemistry between Fox and Lloyd in this are just perfect. That helps make the movie work. The music also does so, but the story itself and the playful way that it handles it, of course, cements these major pieces together in a way that really makes the film engaging. Well, obviously, people loved it and continue to watch it. They made 2 sequels that were also successful and very much liked. I think out of the 3, I think the first original film is the best, but I will say also that 2 and 3 come very close. They move a little slower, although maybe 2 moves a little faster. Maybe that's it. 3 moves a little slower. But I think the pace is appropriate. It works really well. The characters are fun. It's a movie that you can watch over and over and over again. It's just fun, and you keep laughing at the same tomfoolery that's on in the film. It never gets old. As a comedy, as science fiction, put that in quotes, and as entertainment, it's plus. I can't give it anything less. All right, with that, characterization, acting, and start with Tony's out of it. He's got his tea or something that is helping him out, I think. Boy, I could use some right now. Bill, N5BB. Bill, yeah, you get to talk about characterization. What did you think, or the acting in Back to the Future from 1985?
Oh, this is N5BB. Well, it's a little hard analyzing the characterization because, this movie I've seen several times, and I first saw it a long time ago. So it's kind of like it's part of it's part of culture. It's kind of like 2001, but in a different way. And so kind of hard thinking about it because I'm so familiar with the storyline, the basic storyline, and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the acting was, I thought it was just fine. I think that Michael J. Fox did great. He looked like a 17-year-old kid doing these things. I believe that. And the other characters, they played both their adult and their younger characters, I think, just fine. And it was very believable to me. As far as I say believable, it's a fictional fantasy movie, but you could suspend your disbelief to believe that those characters really were what they said they were. I think it was really. I think the doctor was really great. If you think about it, he was kind of this amazing hero that did all these crazy things, including rappelling down from the clock tower to plug everything in time. Of course, you have to suspend disbelief, because who in the world thinks they could get a car to go through at just exactly the right time? They knew the time within a minute, but they had to get the car to go through within a few seconds. So in some sense, that made no sense, but that's just the way it is. I liked Einstein the dog. I think Einstein played a very good Einstein the dog. So I guess the problem is I like it all, and I can't really find any significant arguments against the acting or the characterizations. But a lot of that is just because it's so ingrained in what I'm familiar with, it's hard for me to be negative about it. It's kind of like The Wizard of Oz. I've seen it so many times, and I saw it when I was so young. It's kind of hard for me to be negative about it, since it's kind of it's a culture icon. Anyway, I guess I've said as much as I need to. Inside BD.
All right, thank you, Bill. Let's see here. I just got some notes from someone here, and I will read those in just a little bit. But at any rate, here we go. Next up is Virginia, and V5 asks Virginia the thoughts on characterization.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Yeah, I agree with Bill that it is so part of the culture. You know, it's just one of those things that it was one of those movies that was kind of an everybody movie. So it was one of those movies that almost everybody went and saw. We had that back then, a movie that was an everybody movie, and it was what people did. I was watching a rundown of like all the. It was a YouTube stream, and they were doing kind of a retrospective on the cinema of. I want to say it was the cinema of 1985. It was 84 or 85, and they were. You know, there was like several people on the panel, and they were just picking out all the movies that they were found memorable from that particular year. And I was blown away by how many of those movies I remembered going to see at the theater. You know, going to the movies was just something you did back then, like way more than now, I think. So I get that. I get that aspect of things. I also don't necessarily think criticism is negative. I think it's just observation of maybe how it could have been done better, or how something was maybe a little bit off, but you know, overall it didn't detract from the acting or the characters. You know, things that were just a little bit awkward or weird, or you know, if you think a casting choice could have been a little bit better. But and then as far as Back to the Future goes, I do think Michael J. Fox was at the height of his game. He also made Teen Wolf in the same year. He was the star of Family Ties. It was one of the biggest sitcoms in the country. And he played a different character, but he was still always kind of himself, and his comic timing is just great. He just has, there's just ways he says things, and it's not even necessarily how a teenager would say it in a lot of times. It's a little more polished or comedically perfect than a real teenager would say it, but he's just so good, and he's so funny. And Christopher Lloyd's the same way. He was just, and the chemistry between them and the juxtaposition of the older sort of mentoring kind of, but whimsical kind of figure, misunderstood scientist that everybody thought was a crackpot who was really actually smart. Marty had kind of, was kind of a cool guy who was maybe not one of the coolest kids, saw Doc as a real cool, as a neat person, even though he was an older guy, and their chemistry was always wonderful. They're both very perfect for their characters. I do remember Eric Stoltz took the whole thing way too seriously, and I think that was why his performance wasn't working, and they ended up figuring out how to get Michael J. Fox to be able to do Family Ties during the day and this during the night or something. He was really just, his schedule was just had him so jam-packed while he was making this. I thought that I can't even think two better people to play the leads in this. But I do remember, even the first time I saw this at the movies, and I didn't know from this movie at all. I had not seen a trailer. I knew who Michael J. Fox was as soon as I saw the movie. I was like, oh, it's the guy from Family Ties. I didn't know from Christopher Lloyd very well. I had not seen him in a lot of things. I didn't watch Taxi, so I didn't know him from that really. I'm sure I'd seen him in a couple of other things, but I didn't know him very well. And Leah Thompson I didn't know very well. They were the main people. But I do remember, and Crispin Glover as George McFly was perfect. He was such a weird little guy, and he just did perfect at that role. It was really like he was such a strange person in almost every other thing he did. He sort of felt like he was just very weird, but in this it was just perfect. But I do remember when I saw this the first time, and that during the present day, you see all these actors that are supposed to be the guy who plays Biff, and the guy who plays George, and the guy who plays Lorraine. They're all supposed to be playing older people. And I even remember in the opening section of the movie, before Marty had gone back to meet them, when they were the age he was in 1985. So they were all supposed to be younger people, but they were playing these older versions of themselves in 1985. And I remember thinking, these people don't seem quite right. And I didn't know the actors well enough to know what their ages were until I saw them in the 50s part of the movie. And I was like, oh, okay. The reason they didn't seem quite right in 1985 was because they were really these younger people trying to play older people. And it never really bothered me, but there was always something about it that was a little off for me at first, because I didn't understand that I didn't know anything about the movie, so I didn't know that he was about to go back in time and meet all these people as, like, people that were his age, So they needed to be played mostly by teenagers. So teenagers or early 20s people playing these people that were supposed to be like 45 was, to me, a little forced, a little awkward feeling. But now the movie's just, the story's so good, that I don't really care anymore. But I remember the first time I saw this, I was like Carolyn Thompson playing, Lorraine as an older lady who was like drinking too much and was supposed to be overweight, so they put her all in these big clothes and they, did stuff to her face to make her look older and more overweight, and her trying to talk in kind of that voice like this, like she's older, and it just wasn't completely convincing. And now it's Back to the Future, and who cares, because it's great, because the whole the story's so good, and now that these people, they're teenagers, and they did as good as they could have done at the time, for what their age and what they didn't know about being older for real. So that's kind of my main thing. And then what I said earlier about the plot about Marty and his mom, like his mom kind of had a crush on him, and they, in 1955, that was played perfectly. She was almost like a different person when she was around Marty. She was all flighty and put up like an octave, and but then when she was around her friends going, oh man, I'm gonna find out where he lives, and like she almost had like this different side of her that was, sort of playing up for him, being kind of almost this helpless, person, but it worked. It was like her personality, like it really was sort of how she sort of worked the whole situation. Doc Brown, in both times, Christopher Lloyd played both time frames pretty well, because he was already, Doc was already like an older guy, like in 55, and playing him 30 years later, they changed the color of his hair and made him a little bit more crazy. I noted to my cousin earlier today when we were watching it that when they go to the high school for the first time to look for his parents, he's kind of a snappy dresser in 1955. He's got kind of his fedora hat, he's kind of got the Panama Jack look going, and my cousin said, well, he's got this family fortune that he hasn't blown yet, so he's got all this money to have really nice clothes and a nice car, and he's got a nice house, and, he hasn't, like, spent all his money and all his time doing weird science experiments yet, so he's still kind of a good dresser back in 1955. I thought that was funny, but anyway, the guy who plays Biff is great. I mean, Biff is a little bit almost too dark in places, but the balance of just the bits that he does and stuff kind of balance out how dark his character is, like the make like a tree and get out of here, and that kind of stuff, where he's just kind of this big dumb guy, but he really has a very dark side, and they play that balance really well. They walk that line with him really well. He's got his goofy friends, his little gang of friends, and I loved the guys in the band at the dance. They were great. It's just, everybody, the casting on this was fantastic, and even the little misgivings I had the first time I saw it about the younger people playing older people in the 1985 part. I'm used to it now, and it works. And the science fiction part of it, I was a burgeoning science fiction fan when I first saw this, and I did not consider this science fiction. I was obsessed with 2001 and 2010 at the time, so I did love that George McFly was obsessed with science fiction and that he was writing science fiction stories, because that's what I was doing. And he was obsessed with, science fiction theater, and Marty comes and, like, makes him think that he's an Darth Vader, the alien, from planet Vulcan. I laugh till I cry almost every time I see that scene. It's so good. So well played. Comedy great. Drama great. Casting all great. Back to the Future, what can I say? It's great. Back to net in V5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia, and I have a feeling you like this film. Okay, next up is Cecil, AC5VC. Cecil, you want to talk about characterization from KE5, ICX.
AC5VC, yeah, well, for me, the movie managed to cover all the bases. Particularly with the casting of the characters. I think about it after I've seen it, and I've seen it several times since the original viewing, but I can't quite imagine any other characters than the ones that were cast. And they fit the roles perfectly. And we saw the good ones, and Marty, the bad with Beth, the eccentric Chris Lloyd, and somehow I was okay with all of them. The movie was entertaining. I don't know if you can ever say anything that's science fiction or time travel or anything like that is truly true to life, but it was an entertaining movie. And I think most of that was because of the characters. The characters were all memorable for me, and they made you feel comfortable with them. It was a real universal appeal that just kind of spread throughout the whole movie. And I think one of the reasons why is I think Zemeckis kept things relatively simple when they could have really been very complicated whenever you think about the theme that was presented, the way the movie was probably marketed initially. But yeah, I like the movie, still do. I still recommend it to now my kids and my grandkids. But it was a good one. I don't know if you would place it up there with Wizard of Oz or something like that as one that will always be around or not, but it's pretty close to that. Back to Ned, AC5VC.
All right, thank you, Cecil. Yeah, my sentiments exactly. I'll give similar comments here in a minute. KF5PDS, Billy, you're up. What do you think about characterization from KE5ICX?
Well, I think the characters are great. Everything was very well cast, and I think changing to Michael J. Fox was the correct move because the chemistry is just so much better. I think Eric Stoltz was so much more of a method actor and was trying to make it too dramatic. And I've seen some of that footage, and his chemistry is not as good as what we've seen with Michael J. Fox. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I think Eric Stoltz is a great actor, and the roles that he plays, he brings, what he brings to the roles that he plays very well, and I've enjoyed movies that he's been in, but for this movie it needed Michael J. Fox's comedic timing and just easygoingness. He just has kind of an ease about him, like it just comes so naturally to him. And with Christopher Lloyd's kind of frantic Reverend Jim energy, he had that enough frantic energy that he could play a good eccentric scientist, because in Taxi, when he played Reverend Jim, he was so off the wall there that it was a different kind of energy. He kind of channeled some of that, but it was not the same, like a redo of a character. It was a completely different character for Doc Brown. But I loved that Marty was like his sidekick and would help him with his experiments and also help look after Einstein. The dog was so cute, and was with him on all of his adventures as well. But I think the characters are great. I loved Strickland, the principal, vice principal, whoever he was playing the principal walking the halls. And I love in Back to the Future too, because he's like this vigilante guy in the alternate timeline. But when he goes back to 1955 and Marty comments, it's like, didn't this guy ever have hair? He seemed to never age. He always seemed to be the same. So he was kind of the constant, I think, in the universe. And I think Crispin Glover, he brought his quirky energy to George McFly. He had the right dorkiness. And I agree, it's always interesting to see films that cast actors that are older than the ages they're playing, but if they're all relative to the same age, it seems to work. Kind of like in Grease, all of those folks, Olivia Newton-John, John Travolta, Stockard Channing, they were all way older than the characters they were portraying, but because they were all about the same age relative to each other, it worked, and you were able to suspend disbelief to get into the films and have fun. So same thing goes here with Back to the Future. They're closer to the ages that they're supposed to be playing, but I agree with Virginia. It does seem a little weird when they try to age them. It's not as good as like what we can do now with that effect. But I think for the times, you know, it is what it is, and I think it adds to the kitschy fun of the film. And I love that they gave a bit part to Huey Lewis, you know, because he was the guy that called out the band when they were trying to play his own song. Sorry, guys, you're just too darn loud. I thought that was great. And I don't know if I recognized that at the time. I may not have really clued into that fact until later. I honestly can't say that when I first saw it that I was like, hey, that's Huey Lewis. But later on, that fact certainly came out. And it's interesting now because we have things like IMDb and Wikipedia where we can look up the ages of the actors and see where they were in their careers and bring that to our perspective on movies now. So, which we did not have back in 1985. We could not just go look up an actor's statistics or their career, you know, we just knew them for what we saw them on TV. And I've recently gone back and started watching on on Roku, I think it's Pluto TV. They've got a Family Ties channel, and going back and watching those, thinking he was doing that movie at the same time as he was doing the TV show. That's just wild. It's like, you know, how does a person have enough energy to do all of that? And I think it's amazing that he was able to pull off all that and be so successful back during those times. That was the real heyday of Michael J. Fox's career. So he's an amazing actor in person, and everything that he's done has been very successful. So I think it was wonderfully cast. The characters were very well written. The way they intertwine with each other, I think, was very cleverly done. So with that, I will return it to you, Tom. This is KFI PDS. Back to net.
All right, thank you, Billy. I think this round pretty much concludes that we like the characters as well. Anyone else want to check in? I've got some notes here to give out, but anyone else want to check in? We're talking about Back to the Future from 1985, the original. Okay, hearing none. David AC5TL, who checks in here periodically, had sent me notes. He said he was not going to be on. He had a family event. Gosh, July 4th, family event? How is that possible? I'm going to read to you what he sent to me here. I just found it. And it says here, do you enjoy afterglow movie Back to the Future? I know I did. The movie is like a ship sent to rescue Afterglow movie watchers marooned on a desert island and subjected to watching a typical, and he uses my call sign, sci-fi movies. I mean, where else can you find a movie that highlights time travel, memories of indoor shopping malls, and a peeping Tom all in one? Do you like the plot of this movie? I know I do. And I liked it in the past as well. You know, when I watch this movie, I sometimes wonder how Marty McFly would have met and become friends with Doc Brown. But then I can understand why he was wanting to reach out for friends outside of his house, since things in his house were pretty depressing. And besides, Doc Brown had a means to make him the biggest guitar amp speaker in the neighborhood. For Marty, Doc was sort of a mentor as well as a friend, and perhaps a father figure to Marty in his original past, owing to his father's history of being bullied by Biff. I think Back to the Future is the first time travel movie that I ever experienced the impact of time travelers changing the future by getting involved in their lives in the past. This movie includes numerous Easter eggs, examples of this. Some of the examples are subtle, like how about the name of the Twin Pines Mall changed into the Lone Pine Mall after Marty ran over one of the old men peed by pines in his front yard, while others are much more significant, like Marty saving Doc Brown's life by giving him a warning letter. Other examples are more broad, such as newfound success for McFly family as a result of Marty instilling confidence in George, and Biff losing his bully status as the result of being punched by George. All in all, the plot of this movie was superb. It finished up with a happy ending and everything being improved in McFly's family and family name. Or so we think, until Doc returns from the future and provides a hint to the next. Now, that's all I have to say about the plot. So with that, I give it back to the next. He wrote this up so he could read it, but he's not here because the family. Then he says on characterization, the characterization in Back to the Future is all about change. Marty starts out as a kid growing up in a family with troubles. His father never reached his full to the past, and having no way to get that back other than to rely on Doc, Marty comes through, bolstering his dad's confidence in fight for Lorraine, overcome bullying by and to develop his interest in writing sci-fi stories. As a result, everyone prospers. I'll save the technical effects. He's got some technical points in here which are quite interesting, including line items. Oh boy. My thoughts on characterization. Okay, you can't beat the casting in this movie. It is so good. I just, Michael J. Fox was at the top of his career. He was doing very well, and he played this character, Marty McFly, very, very easily. It was a great characterization, and if you saw any of the original work with the original actor, you can definitely see a major difference, and that's probably why they let him go and paid whatever Michael J. Fox wanted or needed, or whoever his handlers were to get this into this position. Others that were chosen and considered: John Cusack, Thomas Howell, I don't know who it is, Johnny Depp, Ralph Macchio, Charlie Sheen. They were all young back then. Ben Stiller, Peter DeLuise, Billy Zane, George Newberg, Robert Downey Jr., Christopher Collette, Matthew Modine, Corey Hart. All these people were doing quite well at the time, so they probably could have it fit the box office bill, but again, I think who we got was much, much better. What was I going to say? Doc Brown character, you can't argue with success. That's Reverend Jim on steroids, I guess, and I think it was well done. So with that, let me see, what else do I want to say? I guess that's it. Okay, next up, third round, anything and everything you want to talk about. So technical or non-technical, doesn't matter. We'll start with Bill and 5B. Bill got for anything we may not have covered or technical aspects of the film from KE5, I6.
This is N5BB. Tom, I had to get up early I was a voter registrar at the Irving, and we set up at the Irving 4th of July Independence Day parade early. So I'm just burned out. I think I've said all I want to say. I like the movie. Thanks. Good evening.
Okay, I understand, Bill. I'm starting to fade. It gets this late. I have problems myself, as you can tell. All right, well, have a good evening. We'll talk about this. Check your inbox for next week. We've got a doozy for next. You cannot miss next week's movie. It is impossible to skip this coming movie. It is like something you've never seen before. Believe me. Next up, NV5F, Virginia. Your final thoughts. Go ahead from KE5, I6.
there's a lot in this movie. While I was watching it today, my aunt came in and sat down for about the last third of it, and she's seen it before. You know, she knew what was going on, but she actually sat down. We were watching it, and my cousin was there, and we were all three watching it, and she just said, they were just so creative with how they did these movies. They just can't do them like this anymore. And it was so true. It was such a simple thing to say or observe that, and I think she was just talking about how you can tell that they didn't have nearly as much technology to work with, but they had so much expertise on how to technically make things that weren't real look pretty close to real. You know, we have to suspend our disbelief a little bit in this era for things to feel real. But when it's on a big screen and it's got the sound and the lighting and the editing and the music, it's not that hard. And there's some things in this that look so full. You know, like the scenes where Doc Brown is up on the clock being the hero, and he's got to swing around up there and do all that. And they had they had the wind going and the lightning and the thunder and all that. That was a pretty complicated scene. There was a lot of scenes like that in this that looked really simple, but there was a lot going on, and the effects were things like, they're backing the DeLorean out of the box truck, and there's just fog everywhere, and, it's the simplest thing, but that with the music and the lights and everything makes it seem pretty surreal, so I think the effects in this were pretty basic. It wasn't really an effects-driven movie, or, the trails of flames after the time machine, goes through that was probably the most exciting effect in the whole thing, is when it's, going through the time barrier, basically hitting 88 miles per hour. Those were very cool effects. They still look really good. And then, it's all just analog, basic. I'm sure there's some animation, some hand animation in there for effects. Something a lot of people may not realize is that a lot of the effects, lighting and lightning and those kind of things, a lot of those kind of effects were actually done after the fact by hand animation with cells and things. They would actually animate those, kind of like effects animation in Disney movies and stuff. They did a lot of that stuff by hand. The music is great. Probably Alan Silvestri's first really great score he wrote. What I love about the score that's really subtle is that because it's sort of becomes a period movie, the character of the score feels that way. In the 50s, you got a little bit of that, the orchestration of it. It's orchestrated kind of like an old sort of science fiction movie, or science fiction theater, and I do like how that kind of fed into that. The strange tales, and the kid at the farm with his comic book, and George McFly, loving science fiction, and that kind of being a trending thing in the 50s. The space program was just, not even started yet. We hadn't even put a satellite up in 1955, but it was something that people were thinking about. So I loved how the score has that old school feel to it, and it's so subtle that it doesn't stand out, but it reinforces kind of the period quality of the movie, as does some of the soundtrack music. Of course, the music is great. The needle drop kind of music from the 50s is so good. It's all very well chosen in this. So yeah, just great editing too, good cinematography. The whole thing is just generally a masterpiece. Just one of those really well balanced, kind of perfect movies, and everything works together, and nothing upstages anything else. And it's just you know, I may think of something to say as a final word. Other people have spoken. I am very curious about David's line items. So back to Net in V5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. Thanks for your comments. I enjoyed them this evening. Next up is Cecil, AC5VC. Cecil, your final comments from KE5ICX.
Yeah, AC5VC, the movie, for me, never took itself too seriously. I believe that some well-written movies, even comedy movies, can always teach us a lesson. But probably in a really subtle way, which is what Back to the Future, I think, managed to do. And the lesson for me was that family's everything. That, to me, was the whole point of the movie, really. I mean, you know, it was marketed as time travel, as a fantasy, and it had a lot of things, like had been pointed out, that were really probably a struggle to create at the time because of the technology or the lack of technology. But the family thing is what made it for me. And that's something that we may not always be aware of until much later. So, in a nutshell, it was a superbly cast comedy, and it's one that stays relevant, and one where the music still resonates for me. That's about all I can say about it, I think. I really like the movie. AC5VC, back to Net.
All right, very good. Cecil, thank you for your comments this evening. It's most appreciated. I agreed with everything you had to say tonight. Next is Billy, KF5PDS. Billy, your final comments from KE5ICX.
Thanks, Tom. I really can't think of anything else to add except I just really love the film and we'll continue to enjoy it for many years to come. So anyway, looking forward to our next movie watch. So this is KF5PDS, back to Net.
All right, well, it's a doozy. But let me get through our final comments here. Back to the Future, this is from AC5 DL, and he says the following. He says, this movie is perfect for sci-fi nerds. I guess that's us. It's got all kinds of geeky stuff in it, but I feel I must point out this, : when Marty brings back a JVC GRC1 VHS-C camcorder back to the past, the movie shows it hooked to Doc's vintage black and white TV with a straight cord out of the camera's with a crude-looking splice done with electrical tape. Since TVs in the 1950s didn't have composite video, Marty and Doc would need JVC's approved accessory to convert 3 or 4 on the TV's tuner. JVC approved accessory was the RFP1U RF unit. Of course, any composite video to RF converter would work as well, but they weren't using one. So although Mark bring Doc's camcorder to the mall, he didn't bring in an RF Scout since he was not prepared. I guess that says it all. I don't know who could possibly top that. Unless David gets on the radio and tells us more, in which case then we would go into super nerd status. But he's probably right. I am not going to look up an RFP1U RF unit, but I'm pretty sure he's right. But special effects, there's a lot of practical effects in it. I like what Virginia had to say. You could see that there was the practical effects that were there. You had animation that went along with that, the flash arc lights and all of that to add to it for practical effects. They did do, and we've seen this, if you've seen the making of, they just light up the tire tracks with just, standard fuel on the ground that makes like a torching effect, that sort of thing, which looked good, and some minor special effects. It's 1985. We've already got Star Wars, so it's not completely without special visual effects, but most of it is still practical and keeps the cost down. So there's still that. But overall, it was great. I think the music is the glue to this movie. Yes, the 50s music and the needle drops and all that are fine, and I think it's great. But I do love the score. I love the orchestral score. I really think that this really hypes up the movie quite a bit. And who can't stop not humming the tune, that tune coming out of it, the main theme? You always do. And it's always fun, and every time you hear it, you get like a little bit of goosebumps because it's very, very over the top. It's just perfect for this film. So putting it all together, I can see why it was a hit and why it had two sequels that were also hits. Think about it. All right. See here. Everybody ready for this? I'm going to pull up the thing on this. Hang on. All right, I do have requests in here. I will get them out, but I saw this film. It came out of left field. I had never heard of this film. It is technically considered a science fiction film. It is called The Apple from 1980. Get this, it's a science fiction disco musical. Yes, it's all those things. It's guaranteed an entertaining movie, or not. That's it. I'll send out the info on it. It's available on Tubi TV. It's called The Apple from 1980. That's it, kids. We'll do this again next week. Hope to see you all then. This was a fun one. Thank you. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
Oh, speaking of really niche science fiction disco musical, this isn't really, it's not necessarily disco, but it's got a lot of roller skating and a little bit of disco and fantasy. I watched Xanadu the other day, and that's a really trippy little movie, and it's always like better than I remember it. Oh, and also there was a deleted scene in Back to the Future during the scene where they had set up the TV and the video camera, and there was a scene where they were looking for a 75-ohm transformer. So I think they must have cobbled something together, at least, and tried to make it look like they weren't just, cheating on that, but the scene got cut. So I'm sure David would appreciate that. Back to net, NV5F. Oh, sorry, net over. Good night, everyone. NV5F.
Before you go, what was the movie you were talking about? And that's a good point, by the way.
The movie is Xanadu. I believe it came out in '81. It's a very weird little high-concept movie that had Olivia Newton-John doing half of the songs and ELO doing the other half, and then they collabed on the song Xanadu. And it's a pretty simple story. It's very, very of its time, and I watched it the other day after a long time not seeing it, and I watched it a ton when I was a kid. But it's a cool little movie. It has Gene Kelly in it. It's a pretty neat music, so we might consider that one. I wouldn't say it's science fiction, but it does fall in the fantasy. It does definitely fall in the fantasy genre.
Okay. Now that I heard what the title of the movie was, Xanadu. Now, yes, that movie has suffered much beratement over the years. When it came out, it was a box office flop. But I'm with you. I actually rather enjoy the film, and it's got Gene Kelly in it. He roller skates through the thing, which is pretty cool, and Olivia can't even tell. Olivia Newton-John. I always want to do Neutron Bomb because that's what everybody called their nicknames. It's not a bad film. It really is rather entertaining. It's got Michael Beck in it, too, if I remember correctly. Yeah, maybe we should watch it. It'd be kind of fun. It's not a bad film.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story is super simple. It's really a vehicle for the music. It was kind of the time of the beginning of music videos being big, and I mean, Olivia Newton-John was going off of her popularity from Grease, and she's a little bit cloying in it. She's a little cute and sweet, and a little bit too perfect, but but I just remember it being a good memory from childhood, and I just love anything ELO, so the music in it, I love that, and I think all the music in it's really good, and it's got some cool counterpoint things, and I remember even then the idea of how the music all blended together and worked together, even when I was like 9 years old, was fascinating to me. I loved all that stuff with music, so I remember loving it, and I watched it the other day and enjoyed it. And if you can take it for what it is, then it's got some pretty fun effects in it and some cool visuals and a pretty neat, just basic idea. But yeah, that might be a fun one to watch in B5S.
Okay. I just chatting with somebody over on YouTube just gave another movie to watch, Returner from 2002. Put that on the list, see if I can find it, see what it's about. All right, we'll see you later. I'm going to pack everything up and go to bed. Say 7-3 to you. It's good seeing you, too. I had a lot of fun last weekend with everybody. Seeing everybody again. Field day's always nice, so we'll do this again next year, I guess. All right, I've said enough. I'm rambling. I'm falling asleep at the switch here. So good night. This is KE5 ICX. Now I really am clear.
Okay, good night. Good to see y'all at Field Day, too. Appreciate all your help. I'll talk to you later. 73 NV5F.